right. Good morning, everyone. And good morning to everybody joining us from all around the world. We're so happy to have our PJ Sangha with us each and every day. All those folks joining us at home. And let's see, as you guys know, I spend a lot of time each week talking with members of the Sangha, whether it's counseling or just coffee or we're at an event or something like that. And by the way, I meant to mention to you guys, last Sunday was kind of like TBC day out at the Wellness Garden at the Arts Garden in KC, and that was my first time out there. And I actually didn't really know what to expect. I thought it'd just be me and 5 or 6 people in a cactus in the middle of a field. Oh, oh no, it's huge. I mean, there must have been like 5 or 6 rows of tents filled with artists, local Kansas City artists. There's a stage and bands, lots of games and just wonderful things. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I even saw Ark out there. He's got his own booth out there. And so it was really delightful. So I just want to pump up the praises of the Arts Garden, which Ark, I think, is every Sunday, right? From 1 to, or 11 to, no, it's like 11 to 3:30 or 4. So if you have not been out, please put that on your calendar for some Sunday to go out and enjoy that. So I spend a lot of time talking with members of the Sangha, and you know, in the past few months, it's kind of sort of been a lot of the same thing, a lot of anxiety around politics, or a lot of anxiety around environmental issues. I even had one person worried about asteroids. And this is actually International Asteroid Day. I don't know if you guys knew that, but so happy Asteroid Day. Is that what you wish people on Asteroid Day? I don't know. But anyway, duck, or I don't know. So the question comes up, of course, you know, within our practice. Some might be thinking, you know, how can I look at all of this without falling into despair or depression or a sadness, or how can I remain positive when all of this is, you know, right in my face all the time? And I know many of the Sangha members actually they become more conscious about what they consume. So they're not plugged into that 24-hour news cycle. And yet, we interact with so many friends and family who are, right? So you're still, in a way, indirectly kind of getting a lot of these worries and concerns. You know, how can this be addressed so that, you know, we have a better future? And so a lot of these questions and things are always coming up and seem to be kind of a common thread. And so the answer, basically, in a word, is compassion. Compassion, interestingly enough, right? So a lot of people be like, well, if you had to boil it down to one word, I don't know if I would have landed there, but compassion. Compassion, what is it? Let's unpack this. And I know we talk a lot about it, but compassion tends to be one of the more difficult concepts within the Buddhist tradition and the practice to really wrap our heads around. First, of course, is no self. That's always going to be the most difficult thing for people to understand. But right there in a close second is compassion. Compassion can be many things. It is way too big to be pinned down by a single definition. We might best understand it by first looking at what it is not. So compassion is not pity. Pity sees others as victims, and even perhaps might see ourselves as some sort of a hero or a savior or a repair person. I even might feel a certain sense of superiority. Pity secretly says, I'm so glad that that's not me. So compassion is not pity, and I know that it oftentimes gets mistaken for that. So just notice when you feel when you see for example, a panhandler on the street or something on the news, of course, just notice what you're feeling, notice what you're sensing. Of course, not everyone will feel the same thing, but it is helpful to notice your own feelings and what you are sensing or feeling, rather than trying to figure out how much to give a panhandler or how to justify not giving. It may be even uncomfortable to sense and notice what you're feeling, but it is very revealing to bring that awareness back down in and sensing what you're noticing in the body. When you are confronted with, I'm just using the panhandler situation as an example right now, or if you've got a friend who's telling you about, oh, it's all going to hell in a handbasket and all this kind of stuff, and just sensing and feeling, being present with what you're noticing, this can be very, very revealing. And what we know as practitioners is what is revealed can be healed. And so instead of getting caught up in our thoughts about what we're feeling or about what we're going to say or how we're going to steer or guide this person to a path of freedom and liberation, instead of all of that, just be present and notice what's coming up for you. This is a wonderful place to start, and indeed is the only first step. Anything other than that gets us caught up in our headspace, and then we're thinking about thinking, and that's not really that's just spinning your wheels in mud. Compassion is also not guilt. Sometimes we respond to suffering from a place of guilt. We sometimes offer to help others just to assuage our own feelings of uncomfortableness or awkwardness or guilt, or perhaps we feel guilty if we choose not to help someone out. Compassion is not predicated upon any action or inaction. It is an internal state of being. We may act from compassion, but whether we do or we don't, we are not motivated by guilt or pity. So that's why it's important to bring our awareness to what we are feeling and sensing in that moment, so that we can be clear, so that we can be pure in our next moment where we might decide to say something or do something, so that the deed or the word comes from a place of clarity, from a place of compassion, and not from a place of pity or from a place of guilt. Compassion is not a feeling of depression or despair. We might believe, and this is, again, the beauty of the process of awakening as we become aware of what is coming up for us. This deed or this word that I'm about to say, where is it coming from? So we sometimes have this belief that if we feel terrible enough, then we have done our duty. Somebody's relating the death of a pet or something terrible that happened, or family members have come together and we're lamenting the state of the union or the environment or whatever. And notice as we look around, and it might even be for us, there's that belief that if I feel bad enough, oh, okay, there, oh, I feel really bad, this is terrible. Now I'm commiserating, and now I'm being a good partner in this moment. And that is not a true belief. That's just a belief. That's, frankly, more theater than it is compassion. And so, or we might sometimes sometimes feel that vicariously living out repressed feelings of depression or despair, and by projecting it onto others, that we are somehow acknowledging the suffering in the world. And so by projecting this despair and these feelings out onto other folks, we are doing the correct thing. So some individuals find that they will even unconsciously merge with the feelings of another person. They may feel what others are feeling, but then they get lost in those feelings, and the boundaries between what you are feeling and what I am feeling get blurred. This is that enmeshment, right? This is that codependence. And what's so fascinating is when I sometimes work with couples, and when one person is asking for space, the other couple is oftentimes insulted or offended in some way, like, what, you can't be around me? And it's not about that at all. It's that I simply need space so that I can feel what is mine without the influence of the energy that you're feeling, because we are in love, because we are a couple, because we have time together. I can't feel what I need to feel when I'm near you because I'm sensing your energies. So in that same way, sometimes people feel that they need to merge with the feelings of what's going on television, or with my community, or with what's happening with this person in front of me, and they seem unable to differentiate between their own feelings and another. And again, this is not compassion. These are little systems, methods, techniques, behaviors, and patterns of thinking that are conditioned, that we have learned over time. We might even have learned it from mom and dad, or maybe we've learned it from a sibling, or we've learned it from a partner. With true compassion, we do not lose our sense of self, and we are able to maintain our own center of identity. We have boundaries, but the boundaries are flexible and can be opened if we choose. If we close them, and we can also close them when necessary. Healthy boundaries are more like a gate than a wall. We choose to open, and when necessary, we can set up healthy boundaries that allow us to be able to sense and feel what we need to in this moment. So what is compassion? I cannot define it, but I can suggest ways in which you can experience compassion for yourself. Compassion begins by being willing to first feel the depths of our own pain, of your own pain. If you can do this without internal commentary, interpretation of your experience, do not compare this experience with anything in the past or something hoped for in the future. This is that process that you often hear us talk about, known as bare attention. Bare attention. That is awareness of what is coming up and you are sensing, without judgment, without stories, without commentary, without relating it to the past or hoping for something in the future. Watch out for overtones of self-pity, resentment, or even idealism. Idealism is one of the big ones, because I often encounter members of the Sangha, and in our discussions, they are always pitting what is in their mind's idea of the way something should be or shouldn't be against what is. there is the disease of the mind. The mind always wants things to be different than the way they are. And so that idealism pops in. Oh, it should be this way. I can see perfection. It's right there. Oh, just inches away from my fingertips. And yet, it's always that way, right? Our mind always sets up the ideal and then pits reality against it. And that creates a lot of suffering. Simply be willing to feel what you feel without adding anything to it. There's a freedom in that. There's a liberation in that. To simply open your heart to all of that. There's that gate. And compassion can be experienced in this way. Be kind to yourself, listen to your body, and gently accept all of the places that might hurt. My teacher used to say to me that your body will never lie to you, and your head often does. Strange as it may sound, when you are willing to feel pain in this way, you diminish your suffering. You will experience the difference between pain and suffering. You will see the difference between that which is inevitable and is a natural, normal part of the human experience, and that which is totally optional, completely avoidable. The difference is vast, and it changes everything. Compassion is a way to overcome suffering. We still feel pain, but compassion is a path to overcoming suffering. These are the two wings of our practice, of the entire Buddhist tradition. Wisdom says no one is suffering. Compassion says it hurts anyway. With compassion, you learn to face suffering in order to end suffering, because you're recognizing it now and you're not running from it. And we have so many interesting ways to run from suffering. Just popping up in our head and thinking about what we're feeling is probably the number one way to do that. I took that as a hallelujah. So as you do this, you will see that suffering is not your personal possession. You don't own suffering. And it is not your fault. Much of our suffering is due to the belief that we are alone or that something is wrong with us. When suffering is recognized as universal, it morphs into compassion. When suffering is recognized as universal, as a part of the human experience, it begins to morph into compassion. Much suffering arises when we try to hide our pain out of, shame or out of fear of rejection. We need not hide our suffering, nor do we need to wear it as a badge of honor, pointing out our specialness. No one has suffered as much as I have. Oh, have you got a few days? I have stories for you. Yeah. So when we stop trying to possess or manipulate suffering, it lessens immediately. Compassion is simply choosing to keep our hearts open as we walk through the darkness. One step at a time, even one breath at a time, keeping our hearts open. Compassion is one of the most powerful forces for healing. So how then do we train in compassionate living? The Buddha offers us many wonderful tools and techniques. And even if I might pop back here for a second and we take a look at the prayer of refuge, which is why this is an integral part of every one of our Sunday meditation services. In the Tibetan tradition, it is known as paramita or prajna paramita, the paramitas themselves. There are 6 of them, and you will notice them right up here. And so through the 6 paramitas, we learn to become comfortable with uncertainty. As Pema Chodron likes to say, through the 6 paramitas, we more quickly and easily are able to find the middle path and come down off of the extremes and find that middle path. And in this way, it is easy to regard the paramitas sometimes as a code of ethics or a list of rules, but the spiritual warrior's world is not that simple. Sorry. What's in the way is the way. Everything that we try to do to go around it will cause suffering. So the power of these activities is not that they are commandments, but they are challenges to our habitual patterns of reactivity. These are challenges for us to wake up in each and every moment. Paramita training has a way of humbling us and keeping us honest. When we practice generosity, we become intimate with our own grasping. Practicing the discipline of ethics or doing no harm is another way to consider ethical training, to do no harm, and that includes to yourself. Notice the self-talk. If any of that is ever negative or harmful, you are not practicing ethical paramita training. Do no harm, and that includes to the self. Those thoughts about not being worthy, not being good enough. Do no harm. So when we practice the discipline of ethics, we see our rigidity and our desire to control. Practicing patience helps us train in abiding with the restlessness of our energy and letting things evolve at their own speed. There's our timeline, and then there's reality's timeline, and they are not the same. Remember, the mind always wanting things to be different than the way they are? Timeline's right there. With enthusiastic effort, we let go of our perfectionism and connect with the living quality of every moment. The problem with the word miracle is that it implies one's not happening right now. Concentration or meditation is how we train in coming back to being present with the here and the now. And the inquiring mind of prajna paramita or wisdom helps us to see things just as they are. And this is the key to this training, because without wisdom, the other 5 can be used to create the illusion of gaining ground. Oh, I'm getting good now. I'm a real Buddhist. And of course, that becomes an attachment to a goal instead of a compass. A compass helps us to learn to operate from intention. It's all about our intention in each and every moment. It's not what we do, it's the quality of the doing. What is our intention in every thought, word, and deed? And this is how wisdom can help support and empower the other 5 practices and activities by helping us to become familiar and indeed recognizing our intention. And so I want to stop there because I've got 17 more pages, I think, if you guys have a little bit of time. But I want to stop there, and again, gratitude for who you are and who you are becoming.